What's up, YouTube? Thomas L here. Premiering this Friday on the Paramount Network is the new Richard Pryor documentary titled "I Am Richard Pryor," which of course chronicles the life of pretty much one of the best stand-up comics there was, Richard Pryor. Now, Richard Pryor, he was awesome. He was, believe it or not, he was the first ever Saturday Night Live host. When Saturday Night Live, first premiered, Richard Pryor was the first ever to host. And he did a lot of pretty interesting movies, whether it be films with Gene Wilder or any of those classic 70s, 80s comedies. So with that being said, here's my 10 favorite Richard Pryor movies. All right. Coming in at number 10 will be pretty much a more of a dramatic turn for him, and that would be Lady Sings the Blues. Now, Lady Sings the Blues, of course, stars Diana Ross as famed singer Billie Holiday. And you have Richard Pryor as of course, the pianist here. Richard Pryor was pretty good here. Who knew how good he was when he did drama? And he was pretty decent here. Diana Ross was, of course, great as Billie Holiday. It had some pretty good music in it. This movie got released in the 1970s, and I think it's a film that still holds up today. It's really good. If you guys haven't seen Lady Sings the Blues yet, I highly recommend checking it out. All right, coming in at number 9 is Critical Condition. Now, this movie was pretty funny. It got released in 1986 or 87. I think it got released around the same time Full House got released because, Bob Saget was also in this. Bob Saget, oh man, that dude is... And seeing Bob Saget do a movie with Richard Pryor was pretty fun to watch. Here, Richard Pryor plays a character named Kevin Lanningham, who's like a con artist, but this time, he's framed and comes before a judge, and so claiming insanity, he hopes to get off the hook. So he managed to end up in a hospital on Governor's Island in New York Harbor for a mental examination. And so that night, of course, a storm breaks out over the area, and the electricity to the hospital is out. So ensuring chaos that follows Kevin is so he's pretty much mistaken for a doctor, and lots of funny shenanigans also happen. This movie, it's probably not a film that could probably hold up today as most Richard Pryor movies, but Critical Condition was pretty funny. I could imagine this movie getting remade today. I could imagine maybe someone like Kevin Hart playing that role and all. But Critical Condition is really funny. You got Bob Saget as a doctor. I believe this was around the same year that Full House got premiered. So, interesting transition with Bob Saget, playing a family man and playing a dad in this, and playing a doctor in this. I mentioned that. Really funny little film. All right. Coming in at number 8 is kind of more of a guilty pleasure, and that is The Toy. In The Toy, it's Richard Pryor plays an unemployed journalist named Jack Brown, who is attempting to make ends meet at as the night janitor in a ritzy department store owned by a Louisiana millionaire U.S. base, played by Jackie Gleason, who's of course best known from The Honeymooners. And so on his annual visit to his father's store, Bates, Pember's son named Eric, played by Scott Swartz, is told that he can choose one item in the toy department to and so everyone's horror, he pretty much chooses Jack, who pretty much is of course a toy here, and he gets turned into a toy. It's not called The Toy for no reason. Let's be fair there. Anyway, yeah, The Toy is a really funny '80s comedy. It's not really a great comedy by any means. Like, it's not one of the best comedies of the '80s, nothing like that. But it's hysterical. I mean, if you guys never seen The Toy yet, I highly recommend that. I mean, I could imagine them remaking this as well. I mean, who would be a good choice to play the Richard Pryor role? I don't know, Marlon Wayans, Kevin Hart. That would be interesting to watch. A remake of The Toy. Okay, I guess I better not give them any ideas. But, I mean, hey, if they remake something and it stinks, who cares? Still got the original, so there's that. But yeah, if you guys still haven't seen The Toy yet, I highly recommend that. I mean, there was also a film with Robert Williams that I guess you could say was similar to it, called Jack, but I mean, The Toy is definitely a hysterical comedy. All right, coming in at number 7 is See No Evil, Hear No Evil. Now, this is seriously one of the funniest premises you'll ever see. I mean, here you got Richard Pryor, who plays a blind man looking for a job. And you got Gene Wilder, who's also a deaf man who runs like a newsstand. And so, like, one day, David hires Wally. And so, like, they actually end up witnessing a murder. And so, like, they try to figure out who the killer is with their collect the senses. I mean, this movie is really hysterical. I believe it was like the last movie that Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder started together. I think it was the last one. I gotta double check that, but this is really funny. I mean, you got Kevin Spacey. I believe this was Kevin Spacey's first feature film as well. Gotta double check that, but and also you got other people like Alan North was in this. You got Joan Silverance. Really hysterical comedy. I mean, it's pretty much a comedy that not really many people really seen before, but it's really funny. I mean, it got released in 1989, and I believe that movie turns. Holy cow, that movie turns 30 this year. Oh boy, I feel old here. But yeah, check out See No Evil, Hear No Evil. It's a really funny one. Coming in at number 6 is Car Wash. Now, this movie got released in the 70s, I believe. And, I mean, you got whoever knew that a movie with Richard Pryor and George Carlin could work out well. This movie is a really funny one. I mean, Richard Pryor and George Carlin, those two were pretty much some of the best comedians of that era. They were both really hysterical comics, and George Carlin, he was great here. I mean, in this, he pretty much plays like a waxy cab driver, and he's also a ex-convict as well. I mean, let's be for real. If this movie got released today, he'll be an Uber driver instead of a cab driver. Let's be for real with that part. Anyway, yeah, Car Wash is a really funny one. I mean, it's pretty much a comedy set during like around Car Wash, and it's a really hysterical one. Like, it's pretty much like, I guess you could say it's a cult comedy that focuses on like a group of friends working at Sally Boyer's car wash in the Los Angeles ghetto. And so, like, the team, meets dozens of customers, including a smooth-talking preacher played by Richard Pryor. You also got George Carlin as a wacky cab driver. I guess you could say this was like Barbershop, but with a car wash instead. It was kind of like it was kind of like Barbershop of that era, you know. But this movie was really funny. I mean, I could probably imagine them remaking this shit. Really, I mean, I could imagine any movies that Richard Pryor starred in back in the days. I could imagine them being remade to that. I mean, you could probably get Kevin Hart as a Richard Pryor role here. Not sure who could play the George Carlin part, but you know, not saying they should remake it, but it'll be interesting to see how this movie will get remade today. You know. All right. Coming in at number 5 is Silver Streak. Now, all right, yeah, Silver Streak. All right. Silver Streak is another really funny comedy that paired Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder together. Now, I mean, Silver Streak, of course, takes place on a train, and so like while on a cross country train ride, overworked book editor George Caldwell, played by Gene Wilder, begins an unexpected romance with a woman named Hilly Burns, played by the late Jay Clayburgh. And so, like on his vacation, his vacation ends up being interrupted. Like, however, when he witnesses another movie where Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder witnesses a murder. Anyway, the true villains kidnap Hilly, pretty much kidnaps both Hilly and Jack Caldwell from the movie train, and so you got Caldwell. So like Caldwell ends up teaming up with a car thief named Grover Muldoon, played by Richard Pryor, and so like they must end up saving Hilly, while also avoiding the police. Silver Streak is really hysterical. I mean, there are some jokes here that probably won't fly today, but it's definitely a funny comedy of that era. I mean, I believe it got released in this around the 70s or 80s. It's hysterical. Gene Wilder and Richard, but I remember really digging when I first saw it. If you guys never seen Silver Streak, I highly recommend it. It's really hilarious. All right, coming in at number 4 is another Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor team-up film, and that will be Stir Crazy. Now, Stir Crazy, I mean, this movie was another pretty funny one. I mean, here you got Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor reuniting, and they play like a couple of out of work numbskulls who pretty much take a promotional job that requires them to dress up like gigantic woodpeckers, and so unfortunately, a pair of thieves, likewise, decked out, in a woodpecker suit, pulls off a bank job, and so Wilder and Pryor's characters end up getting arrested and for a crime that they did not commit, and they pretty much spent a couple of months in jail. It's a hysterical film. I mean, the movie, of course, takes place in prison, and I mean, I guess you could say it was similar to other prison comedy today, Get Hard and a few other comedies. Kind of was influenced by this. This was really downright hilarious. I mean, Stir Crazy, Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder. I mean, this movie they did before, a couple of months after Silver Streak, and I mean those two really worked together well. When Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor, those two were a match made in heaven when they worked together. And I mean, yeah, if you guys actually never seen Stir Crazy, it's another Richard Pryor movie worth checking out. Coming in at number 3 is Uptown Saturday Night. Now, this movie was directed by Sidney Poitier, and it also starred Sidney Poitier with Bill Cosby. I mean, it's a little awkward to talk about anything Bill Cosby related now because of the, I don't want to get into details, but if you've seen the news, you know what I'm talking about. But I mean, over the years, I mean, outside the Cosby Show, Bill Cosby had some okay stuff like this and California Suite, which also featured Richard Pryor in it. But this movie, Uptown Saturday Night, is definitely hysterical. I mean, now this is actually being confirmed for a remake. I remember hearing stuff about Kevin Hart supposed to star in a remake of this. I'll be down to see a remake of that, but Uptown Saturday Night is really hysterical. I mean, it of course stars Sidney Poitier as a factory worker named Steve Jackson. And so, one evening when Boyle gets him the best, Steve and his pal Wardell, played by Bill Cosby, decides to go on an underground gambling club to have some fun. And so, while they are, while they are, of course, they're at the place, the place is like held up, and so like Steve's wallet ends up being stolen, and so like Steve and Waddell, learns that their wallet contains a winning lottery ticket. The friends go on desperate search to find it, and so like you got Shape Eye Watson, played by Richard Pryor, who's like a private eye, who's like enlisted to aid them in the search through the criminal underworld. So like they also got Harry. So like you also got Harry Belafonte in this as the mobster who also runs the town. I guess you could say he's like a parody of Marlon Brando's character from The Godfather. I mean, this movie had some really funny semis, like classic comics of that era. Like you got Sidney Poitier, who wasn't really a comic, but he's definitely was a legend. Of course, Bill Cosby, who let's be for real. Despite everything that's going on with Bill Cosby today, he was pretty much in that era of comics and whatnot. And Richard Pryor and Bill Cosby, I think those two were like friends and stuff. And I gotta say, it's kind of odd that Richard Pryor has worked with like a couple of people who let's say right now have been in hot water. Like he worked with Bill Cosby, who's of course in jail for rape and stuff. He of course worked with Kevin Spacey, who's of course being accused of sexual misconduct, and also he's worked with Michael Jackson, who of course lots of people, who's of course being accused of stuff. So I find that pretty odd, to be honest with you. Anyway, I'm not going to talk about that, but Uptown Saturday Night, this is definitely a classic 70s comedy worth checking out. I mean, you guys still never seen it. If it's like on Netflix or Google Play or whatever, check out Uptown Saturday Night. I think you'll enjoy it. All right. Coming in at number 2 is The Wiz. Now, this movie also starred Diana Ross, and of course, you got Michael Jackson as the Scarecrow. You had you also had Nipsey Russell as a Tin Man, Ted Ross as Carrie Lyon. The Wiz, I believe, was directed by, I think, Sidney Lumet, if I'm not mistaken, or Sidney Pollack. I remember it was directed by someone named Sidney. I can't remember the actual director's name. But I mean, The Wiz is a classic. This is like a reincarnation of The Wizard of Oz, and Richard Pryor actually played The Wiz in this. Richard Pryor as The Wiz, that was really cool casting. And also The Wiz, of course, has some really iconic music like Come On Down the Road and all. Not Come On, Ease On Down the Road, that's what it's called. I mean, I really love The Wiz. No, I don't love it as much as The Wizard of Oz, per se, but I still really get a kick out of this movie. I mean, it got released in the late 70s, and I think it's a Wiz movie that still holds up today. Definitely check The Wiz out. I think you'll enjoy it. All right, my number 1 favorite Richard Pryor movie is, of course, Bustin' Loose. Now, I mean, here Richard Pryor, plays ex-con named Joe Braxton, who's like who extorts a bus full of special education students from Pennsylvania to the Pacific Northwest. And so you got Cicely Tyson as teacher Vivian Perry, who plans to set up a new school. But when the Braxtons, latest attempt at going straight becomes frustrating, there's a series of mashups that happen where he pretty much is he's an ex-convict who pretty much, I guess you could say, goes for a joyride with a school bus with kids in it and a teacher. It's really funny. I mean, Bustin' Loose, it has some really good music in it too. It has those 80s and 70s style music and all. Cicely Tyson was pretty good here. Richard Pryor, I mean, him as an ex-con, that was great. I could imagine this game remade today. I could literally imagine Kevin Hart playing that role. But anyway, Bustin' Loose, definitely a really funny one. And you got Robert Christian playing the parole officer. And this movie was really hard R-rated when it got released. I mean, it got released in I think late '80s, like around the '80s. It's a really good one. I mean, it has '80s comedy in it. I mean, I really don't think that this movie could get like the jokes here probably won't really hold up today because there are some jokes like most of Richard Pryor's stuff. The jokes in his stuff really won't work today because there's stuff today that will literally offend people if they got released today. But I mean, Bustin' Loose is a really good one, and if you guys still never seen it, if it's like on Netflix or whatever, check it out. I think you'll enjoy Bustin' Loose. Anyway, that's pretty much it. Let me do the quick rundown. Number 10, Lady Sings the Blues. 9, Critical Condition. 8, The Toy. 7, See No Evil, Hear No Evil. 6, Car Wash. 5, Silver Street. 4, Stir Crazy. 3, Uptown Saturday Night. 2, The Wiz. 1, Bustin' Loose. Now, Richard Pryor has been like lots of other few good stuff over the years. Let me pull up his credit list. He has some really good stand-up specials as well. Let's see. Oh yeah, he was in Harlem Nights, which I believe that was directed by Eddie Murphy. Oh yeah, he was in Blazing Saddles. For some reason, I always keep forgetting he was in Blazing Saddles. He was in the movie Moving. Brewster's Million is a classic. Richard Pryor live in concert. Oh yeah, he was in Superman 3. Wow, I always keep forgetting that one. Which Way Is Up is a classic. Another music classic one. Grease Lightning. Oh yeah, he was in the Muppet movie. Boy, he's been in some really classic stuff. Anyway, let me leave it to you guys. What are some of your favorite Richard Pryor movies? Drop a comment below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell for more notifications. This here is Thomas Ellis signing off.